Those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside.
Welcome back. I'm Tyler, you're watching the channel with my fracking name on it, and welcome to the 88th installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, Angelic Pretty continues to spite the Lolita population by offering every MTO under the sun except Milky Chan the Fawn, Milky Planet, or a valid reason for me not to throw myself in front of a bus. I will continue to complain about the lack of cat prints until forcibly arrested. And instead of giving us anything we actually want, AP has decided to allow us to obtain Dreamy Offspring Containment Unit and a fruit salad, but make it sad. Please note, baby room is now one word. Do update your dictionaries accordingly. You should find it under the subsection, prints that make it 10 times harder to convince people we're not a bunch of pastel fetishists. Man the anti-kink cannons, ladies and gentle people, for FetLife has opened fire and all our diplomats have been sent back mute and mysteriously sticky. Whatever the case, this thing's hitting the global market like birdshot, and it's up for reservation on the JP site until January 30th. You can order it from France until the 29th, and soon enough in the USA, while delivery times are looking to be around September 2022 for the first on that list, October if you're French, and dates to be announced in the United States. Pending the downfall of our civilization, please do check in for season 246 of Capitalism Was a Mistake, and we're all going to be trading for toilet paper in the parking lot of a hollowed out Target. Melty Berry Princess will also be available on the JP, French, and US websites. The order deadline remains the 30th for the first, January 29th for the French, and those waiting on the USA branch are encouraged to get comfortable because stateside AP is feeling coy and enjoys watching us suffer. The delivery timeline for this is suitably torturous, with it being dropped anywhere from October of 2022 to April of 2023, a nice 6-month span that will give you plenty of time to mull over your bad decisions. Which feels like the perfect opportunity to bring up the BTSSB Best Wishes series, the name of which I have to surmise is a joke. That is, unless they're sending me best wishes from within my jail cell, which is exactly where I'll be after I'm taken in for public indecency post wearing a dress that is surpassed mid-thigh on a model that is 5'3". I am 5'8", and I'm apparently only 5 inches and $340 away from violating an obscenity law in Texas, something I googled specifically for this joke and was horrified and yet not surprised to find it both conveniently vague and majorly punitive, with prison time of up to 1 year and fines up to 10 grand. All I'm saying is that you need to keep Mima's titties in that church dress for the sake of your financial survival. Those of you who haven't disassociated to survive this bit should know that the dress comes in micro, macro, and mackerel, and there's even a skirt and a little hat should you like to look like a pencil eraser or prefer your headwear to be awkwardly sized and just small enough that it will launch itself off your skull at the first opportunity. It's only going to take one stiff breeze before this thing ends up on a milk carton. And while we're talking about poor life decisions, Meta has resurrected the bears that hump fruit for fun. Said bears are still throwing it back like their lives depend on it. And you may throw out everything I've said up to this point because I actually think this print is really cute. The JSK comes in regular and plus size. There's 3 adorable colors. The OP has full back shirring, and you can expect this series to be delivered around May of 2022, which is just long enough to forget that you even ordered it, which is a nice surprise for future you, provided you don't change address or find out how many licks are in a light socket. Obligatory where are my fully shirred OPs AP. If Meta can do it with just a few months heads up, how come you can't do this with a full MTO? How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old brand? I swear to God, AP is Mr. Krabs. Which begs the question, does anyone else think that Misty Sky is the equivalent of the Krabby Patty, or have I seen this glorified weather event released so many times that I'm slowly losing my mind? A completely unhinged segue that brings us back to the comforting arms of reality and our special segment for the evening, Everything We Love Dies. What are you doing with your closet full of extremely niche princess dresses that will haunt your family like pastel ghosts of their their poor child-rearing decisions. Welcome to what happens when you eat the big one. It all started in Ruffle Chat, and more specifically with this post from an OP who asked what Lolitas were expecting to do with their dresses post shucking off this mortal coil, wondering if we would pass them down or auction them, before noting that they themselves would like to be buried in Ghost Night Bride. Personally, I'd rather snuff it in something that would actually give people a reason to cry, but that's coming from someone who's going to need to temper the applause when I inevitably get taken out by a feral shopping cart. So maybe my concerns are not representative of thoughts a moral person should have. Pulling this back to the topic at hand, commenters' answers to the question of what happens to your wardrobe post-mortem fell into a few categories. Saints who fully plan to just donate their entire collection to their comm or friends. Those who had trained their loved ones or significant others in the ways of lace market. People who wanted to be buried in one dress and give the rest away. Those that wondered if Lolita would still be relevant by the time they croaked. And finally, one that replied, and I quote, "They're mine, even in death. I don't give a fuck. Be mad." Which, you know, in an era where we as a community are still dealing with the weird concept of our dresses somehow being community property that strangers are entitled to, I have to kind of respect the weapon's great invitation to suck it from beyond the grave. Might I also suggest the funeral pyre or booby trap tomb option as suggested by these two people? And as someone who is also going to drop hella loot when I die, those wondering what happens to the pastel horde should know that I have turned cameraman into a frilly real estate agent. He has a complete list with pictures of my collection. And he is fully aware that if he takes a penny less than full market value, my vengeful spirit will inhabit his PlayStation, corrupt his save files, and chase him around the house with a neon dildo of dubious origin. Where Ghost Me would obtain said phallus is up for debate, but please note I live in a conservative state, so goodness knows these people are repressed enough to possess things you shouldn't show on daytime television after heavy censoring and the blessing of the Pope himself. Ask the Japanese exactly how tentacle porn came about, and you will get a rough picture of where I'm coming from. And to swerve back into things that don't make the asexual section of my audience ardently wish they were deaf or blind, the OP's query on what exactly happens to our stuff after we die does bring up a few questions of my own. One, for those who make it on this accursed planet for 20 plus more years, what will Lolita fashion look like by then, and will your closet hold value? Two, will global events affect the fashion along with the rise of aggressive right-leaning politics that tend to have a destabilizing effect? And three, what happens when you die anyway? Spoilers only, I'm not looking to get scammed by an interdimensional demon, passing ghoul, or River Styx ferryman who thinks I look like a soft target. We're going to try to answer these questions in order, and taking a look at our first, if I had to guess exactly what Lolita will look like in a couple decades based on its current trajectory, I'd predict it to have roughly the same dress shapes but with updated print placement and types. I'm near certain this fashion is harder to kill than a love interest with plot armor, and polyester will reign absolutely supreme because it's cheap and plentiful, and capitalists will watch this world drown in a fountain of blood before they stop using liquid dinosaur to save the planet. Please note, I'm of the opinion that polyester dresses are actually better because they last forever and thus are much less likely to get thrown away. This honeycake MTO JSK will absolutely outlive me, you, and the concept that there's a god that gives a fuck if you live or die. And I have to live with the fact that there will come a day when my Milky Planet JSK will cease to be because it's made of natural fibers, and that is the day that the sky will go dark and you will hear a shriek so piercing the hearing impaired will inherit the earth. This takes us to our second question: what happens to the frilly princess fashion if Western Nancyism overtakes global powerhouses, resulting in questionable domestic life and international struggle? I would say that Lolita fashion would be the least of our problems in that case. But then again, people are incredibly committed to the status quo, so fret not, I'm near certain people would continue about their day-to-day life until the boot is on their necks. Some will actively try to polish said boot, and knowing my liberal allies, they will spend their time quibbling as to why the boot can't be in vegan leather until the very moment they suffocate and cease to be. I do have some hope that our species has the muster to see a brighter future, but we're sharing the Earth's crust with men who couldn't find the button if their nose was pressed against it, so I do despair at our prospects every moment that I am awake. Which brings us to our third and final question of the evening: what happens when you die die anyway. Everyone seems incredibly concerned with this one. And while I am an atheist and thus generally convinced that frack all occurs after you buy the farm, if I were to imagine an afterlife that is actually made shuffling around this rat bastard plane of existence for fun and profit, I'd like to think that it was a place where we all got assigned perfectly suited therapists. Everyone unpacked their lifetime's worth of horrors, and those who were finished with their sessions were sent to the perfect universe to further develop their passions, spend time with those they love, and build an existence that was lost to them when the burdens of this life dampened their spirit and snuffed out their potential before it ever had room to grow. I'd send the people who wear cat ears to the great litter box in the sky, and I'd have anyone who disagreed shot out of a cannon, because when you piss me off, you'll find the sky's the limit on exactly what I'll do. There is, however, a limit on how many words I'm willing to say within the confines of an hour. We have reached said limit, and that's all the time we have for tonight. This has been Tyler. You've been watching the channel that has my fracking name on it. And before you leave to distract yourself from the sheer anxiety of possessing mortal form, I'd like to thank my patrons for making the fever dreams I create possible. And should you like to join their number, you can head over to patreon.com/lastweeklolitanews for more content no one should watch in this life or the next. I'm going to promptly forget about the fragile nature of our existence. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you next time.